From UDO in partnership with TSN, welcome to episode 37 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. We've got longtime NHL linesman Scott Driscoll in episode 37. Terrific storyteller, some history with Ray Ferraro. So I know I'm looking forward to this. Ray, are you looking forward to it? Because, and then don't give everything away here, but I would say that you and Scott developed a relationship over time. But like many long-standing and good, fun relationships, this one started a little sketchy.
We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
I will say this: it all stemmed from him being wrong, and me trying to correct him.
Right. Okay.
I'm sure his version of the story is going to be much different than that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, good man. He's he will be entertaining for sure.
We've got Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, and we'll get to the Toronto Maple Leafs and kind of peruse Canada in headlines as well. But there's a lot of attention that people want us to spend on the Maple Leafs in post-mortem. So we've got some of that coming up in Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. I'd be remiss. I mean, you look relaxed. You look comfortable. You almost look like a guy who's been camping for 3-4 days. And you were camping. How did it go? Did you enjoy it? Have a good time with the family?
Always. I think this is the fourth year for us. And Cammie had always been, I want to go camping. And she's from Chicago. She's never camped in her life. But we have some friends that go quite frequently, and they said, hey, why don't you come? And we went as a group, and it's been 4 years in a row. I love it. I think it's awesome. I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to do when you camp. Yeah. We do a lot of nothing. Yeah. And we're at the beach or ride our bikes or whatever. I really like it.
So I picture you and Cammie and the kids and the two families camping. And in my mind, I'm thinking of like a 68-foot RV with, a king size bed and a couple of bathrooms, satellite TV, because I've traveled enough with you, and I've been to a few world championships with you where you always have the best suite in the hotel. That's just the way it is.
Dregs, we were in Herning for how long? 8 months. And my room, if it was one of those old-fashioned doors where you put the key in, it would have broke the window on the other side. Right. That's how big my room was. I had this little shoebox for 6 weeks. Anyway, no, we tent. We're in a tent. We got blow-up mattresses. That's it. Now, if we had one of those big wheel dealies you're talking about, I wouldn't be able to drive the thing. You, the Saskatchewan boy, you'd be wheeling that thing all over. Well, I'd never get backed into a spot.
That's a fair point. So probably 4 or 5 years ago, my family and I rented an RV to go visit my sister in Saskatchewan. They've got a place at Fishing Lake. It's a pretty cool name for lake. Yeah, exactly. Fishing Lake. And we land in Regina, go up to pick this rental RV up, and there's like an 80-mile-per-hour wind. And I'm like, all right, it's windy. What's the big deal? Until we got out on the highway, and obviously there's not a lot of coverage in Saskatchewan, and this land yacht was like blowing all over the road. And I'm like, it's going to take us, we had to drive like 2 hours, and I felt like it was going to take 8 hours because I couldn't go faster than like 50 miles per hour because the wind was going to blow us right off the road. Like my wife and kids are getting seasick in this RV. We had to stop a couple of times because it was like going all over the place. So
yeah, see, I'd be freaked out if that happened.
Is that right?
Oh yeah.
You got to try it.
Well, we will, but I'm not getting one of those big land yachts you're talking about. I can't park it. I'd have to keep driving. I'd be like Chevy Chase in European Vacation. Just keep driving around.
You always put yourself in a position where you're going forward. So if you have to stop for groceries, you go to the furthest part of the parking lot, right? So you don't have to back out anywhere, and it's always directed to the exit to get out. So there you go. There's your tip.
Tip for the day. I like it.
Never used the washroom either because I was terrified of actually having to release the valve. And how many movies have we seen over the years where you release that valve, but it doesn't work out so well for you, right?
No good.
No, we didn't do that. Well, I'm glad to hear everybody is safe and sound, and you had a great
all good.
time. All right. Well, let's dive into headlines presented by our friends at Boston Pizza and their popular pizza flights, available for a limited time. 3 pizzas, 3 dips. You choose your pizza lineup. And obviously, it's going to go well with an ice cold beverage or a gigantic fishbowl cocktail. So we hope to see you on the Boston Pizza patio for puck drop. I thought Ray headlines would be fun if rather than pay close attention to each current series, because we're recording this podcast on Thursday night. There's games going on. I mean, we don't want to date ourselves entirely. So why don't we look back and forward at the same time? And who do you think is Canada's best chance of going deep into the playoffs? You know, the Vancouver Canucks looked really solid, I thought, in the opening game, which is our measuring stick. And I'm a bit surprised by the Montreal Canadiens, to be fair. I'm a bit surprised. So is it simply Vancouver for you based on knowing that team well and all the strengths and powers that they have?
I would say so, but you know who's really surprised me, Dregs, is Calgary.
I miss Calgary, and you're right.
Yeah, they've played a style that I didn't think they were going to be able to play.
Right.
And Jeff Ward, who's the interim coach, has to get a lot of this credit.
Yeah.
Because we've talked before, you can be a smart guy. You better sell your ideas the right way, and the players have to buy it. And they seem to be in. They're getting better than adequate goaltending from Cam Talbot. I say it's neck and neck, Vancouver and Calgary. There's something going with Vancouver right now, though. Like they're hitting it right now. Their big boys are playing really well. Quinn Hughes has just been amazing, man. What a player! So and they've played with a backbone that has separated them a little bit. They're going to be a problem for St. Louis.
It appears so. We always start with positive. We try to, and we're doing that by looking forward with Vancouver and Calgary and the Montreal Canadiens. But we do have to analyze what didn't happen for the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Edmonton Oilers. And we'll talk more about the Maple Leafs in Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, because our inbox on Ask Ray and Dregs was littered with Toronto Maple Leafs specific questions. And I know that there's one question we're going to get to where they want to know, okay, who owns the blame here? Is it the players? Is it the coaches? Is it management? All of the above, all of that. But Kyle Dubas made an interesting comment in doing his virtual media availability in the post-mortem, in talking about how, they see promise, as they should. I mean, they know that they've got a real good collection of high quality young players, but they also know and recognize they're going to have to do some things. And they're going to see what the market provides in terms of the free agents. Organically, there's going to be change with Tyson Barrie not coming back. Cody Ceci at $4.5 million feels like a bit of a stretch. But he also kind of threw in there, Ray, something that was a bit of a twist and surprising, talking about the players who have good contracts that they might be able to use as potential bait. And he doesn't mention names, but I'm looking at that third line, and I'm looking at Johnsson, and I'm looking at Kerfoot, and I'm looking at Kasperi Kapanen among the players that make the most sense. I mean, would you agree? And is it necessary for the Toronto Maple Leafs to alter the roster?
Oh, I don't think there's any question they've got to alter it. And the reason, Dregs, and that I keep going back to this idea is that the best teams are balanced.
Right.
And Toronto is not balanced. And so you're looking at a third line there with Kerfoot, Kapanen, and Johnsson, all of them making over $3 million. 2 years ago, Kapanen and Johnsson were on, $900,000 contracts, and they were a luxury.
Yeah.
Now they're a necessity. But at $3 million, I don't know that you can have guys in that price range, given that you've got $43 million of cap room after you get by the $38 million on Nylander, Marner, Tavares, and Matthews. You only got $43 million. You cannot have $9 million on your third line. So they have to alter it. They have to find balance. There has to be a balance between skill and backbone. And it's not that, they can talk about they shot 2% and, at 5-on-5, and Korpisalo was great and lucky, and sure, of course he was. And they were terrific, but they didn't get the job done again. And we can keep being patient and keep waiting. And I mean, that's one way of going about it.
Yeah.
I just don't know that that's the way they can.
All right. Well, we could say the same of the Edmonton Oilers, and you could tell by listening to Kenny Holland and watching Kenny Holland that these weren't words tumbling out of his mouth. He is deeply disappointed. The organization is deeply disappointed that they didn't get by Chicago. They didn't get through the qualifying round and qualify for the Stanley Cup playoffs. In your mind, because there's been a whole lot of talk of this, what is Edmonton's most glaring need?
Well, in this 5-game thing, I would say they did not engage in the intensity of the series that they needed to. And I'm sure Ken was really disappointed in that. Like, that to me stood out. They wanted to play an easy game with lots of points, and McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins had big point numbers. But as a team, as a collective, they didn't play with an intensity that they needed to play with. Their biggest weakness is up front right now. Immediately, they need a left winger. They brought in Athanasiou hoping that he was going to play up in that top six. That just didn't happen for him. They're going to have to chase more depth through their lineup. They tried to do it last year when Ken Holland kind of sprayed the infield with a bunch of $900,000 signings around the bottom six, and maybe he'll have to do that again. But they need to get more dangerous with more people. Real question mark to look at is Ryan Nugent Hopkins is coming up to the last year of his contract.
Yeah.
That's a long deal and an expensive deal. And can the Oilers do that?
Yeah.
I think that's one of their first questions they have to answer.
All right.
And you know what, Dregs, one other thing.
Yeah.
Their goaltending's not good enough.
Yeah. And
It's
then there's lots of speculation as to who Kenny might be looking at. Probably
lots of goalies out.
Probably watching the Vancouver series, right? Like, what's going to happen with Markstrom?
But there's a lot of goalies going to be available. Hey, guess what? Likely Braden Holtby's going to be available. Would you be interested?
Yeah,
maybe.
Why not?
That's just one example. The Rangers have said they're going to go in with 2 goalies next year, not 3.
Yeah, right.
Now, who knows what that means for Lundqvist, but I don't know. Would you be interested in 1 year? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, Jimmy Rutherford has made it clear that he's,
one of those guys is going. Yeah,
it's either Matt Murray or Tristan Jarry, so one of those guys is going. So yeah, Holland's going to have some options. We've got Scotty Driscoll coming up, and I never get caught up in the all the talk of how bad the officiating is. I mean, there are moments where you're watching a game and you agree with this call or you don't agree with this call, and that's a fun part of social media, to be fair, right? You can debate, and you often do. If somebody says, look, I saw you and Carlo just agreeing to disagree on the Hedman non-call, in the Columbus opener against Tampa Bay Lightning. It was a turning point of the hockey game, obviously in overtime. It could have been a penalty. Maybe in a regular season game, it's a penalty shot. But I believe there's a forum for that. I'm not one who jumps on the back of the officials on a daily basis, because I don't believe that the standard changes. I think the emotions of the games change, and that's more on the coaches and the players. Stuff happens. So where are you at with officiating? Because every year it seems to be topical at, officiating just isn't good enough, or the standard has changed. Do you buy any of that?
I do think there's a little more leeway. I do think the players make it really difficult because they play so much more intensely that honestly there are penalties almost all the time.
Yeah.
And so to say the standard slips, maybe a little bit, the volume of plays that can be called increase greatly in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I will say this. My frustration is that when the officials call a lot of penalties, then people get pissed off at that too.
Right.
So you want the penalties called or you don't want them called? And so it's never right. It's never enough. It's never just the right number. If like I'm reading the other night with that 5 overtime game that somebody said, gee, they've played 50 minutes with only one penalty. Can't believe how clean the game is. Of course, the insinuation that the whistles went away. Well, had they called 6 minors, people would be going crazy.
For sure.
And so there's the unthankable job of being an official. And it's a tough gig in the playoffs.
Incredibly tough. And then it makes it more difficult when you've got a really high respected guy in Rod Brind'Amour who takes the officiating to task. And I appreciate Rod's position, right? Like, that was goofy. That whole sequence was bizarre. Does Mrazek have the puck? Is it goalie interference because the puck was knocked out of his glove? Did the Bruin have a glove on the puck? I mean, there was about 6 different things that we're trying to figure out are happening here. And Brind'Amour unleashed, I think it was Luke DeCock in Carolina that he talked to, because there wasn't audio or video of it. But what got him in trouble, the $25,000 fine, was not just the questioning of the integrity of the officials. That's happened many times historically. But when he said the league is a joke.
Yeah, that probably takes it just a smidge far, right?
Yeah, no question. And then, by the way, so the Carolina Hurricanes, Tom Dundon writes the check for $25,017, right?
Yeah.
So honoring Rod Brind'Amour and his number. But again, my spidey senses tingle when I see that stuff, because I'm like, ooh, geez, I wonder if the NHL is going to appreciate that. It turns out that the Hurricanes actually reached out to the NHL, Colin Campbell, to tell him, we're going to do this. Just a heads up. Are you okay with it? So,
okay.
Yeah, there's a sense of humor, even, when.
No, that's okay. Yeah. He was heated. And my favorite part was when he's like, he wants me to pick the call.
Yeah.
He wants me to pick. I just thought that was because Roddy gets pretty intense.
Well, and look, he did it by
and
script,
he should.
Too. He should, but
have been intense.
In my opinion, and I'm not questioning the validity of his concerns. I'm just saying he did it because he didn't want to have his players have to deal with it after the fact, right? I'm going to take it between the eyes. I know I'm going to get fined, but the guys in that room need to know I've got their back. That was a bad situation, and I'm going to deal with it. So there we go.
That was a good one, though.
All right. Are you ready for the Doer Playoff Performer of the Week?
Yeah, I think I am.
All right.
Yeah. Are you?
So, yes, I am, and I think I'm
going to go first then.
Okay, but hold on. I've got to get through the sponsorship stuff here.
Well, do it. I know you'll do it. You're smooth.
Well, each week you and I are asked to pick our Doer Playoff Performer of the Week and explain why we're choosing them. Okay, so you go first. I've already got my guy already lined up.
I mentioned him earlier. I'm going with Quinn Hughes. I think he's had a brilliant start to the playoffs. When the Canucks drafted Elias Pettersson, and then the next year they get Quinn Hughes, it's like everything in Vancouver changed.
Right.
Hughes is dynamic. He's got, I think, 7 or 8 points in the playoffs already. He creates things that just aren't there for other people. I can't think of too many defensemen in the league that play the game like Quinn does. Erik Karlsson. Who else?
Yeah.
It's a short list, man. So he's my performer. I think he's a brilliant player.
Really good in his rookie year in the NHL. Has he gotten that much faster, stronger, all of the things that we keep hearing? I mean, it looks like that. That's the way it looks to me. But is there enough evidence to say there's no question? He definitely has.
Well, yeah, you know what? I think for sure he got stronger, just like Jesperi Kotkaniemi got stronger.
Yeah.
They went away for 4 months. They're teenagers, basically.
Yeah.
And they lift weights. They get strong fast.
Right.
And for both of them, it was a time to relax and rest. And then all of a sudden, it's not so much the pounds, but the strength gets born into you. And I think it's very noticeable.
So my Doer Playoff Performer of the Week, we have to isolate it to one player, and I'll explain why, but really it's the line. And you touched on the Calgary Flames earlier in the podcast. The line of Dubé and Bennett and Milan Lucic have been outstanding, terrific. And Dylan Dubé, similar to Quinn Hughes and Kotkaniemi, I mean, he wasn't sitting around doing nothing. I mean, this guy just looks like he's got more pace in his game, and we're seeing that in the playoffs. However, Ray, my doer playoff performer is Lucic. And I don't know, maybe
off the mat. Okay.
Maybe the wheels are coming off the old dog at some point here in the near future. But what I've seen from him in the qualifying round against the Winnipeg Jets, granted, I mean, the Jets were depleted. I mean, they lost Shifley, they lost Line, they lost Appleton. I mean, a lot of stuff went bad in a hurry for the Winnipeg Jets. But you're seeing the intensity back in Lucic's game. You're seeing the emotion back in his game. We're seeing a quickness in his game that we haven't seen for years. That power play pass the other night to Dylan Dubé was on his stick. The puck was on his stick for, a half a second? Like, it was just bang, bang. And it's an excellent scoring opportunity, and Dubé doesn't miss the shot. It's a perfect shot. So for me, it's Milan Lucic and everything that he's investing now that I don't think we saw at any point with the Edmonton Oilers. So it might say
that's a good one. That's a good one, though. That's a good one. It's like he's freed up a bit. He, the bar got so low for him.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I got to do something here. And he's been terrific. He has.
All right, there we go. Quinn Hughes of the Vancouver Canucks and Milan Lucic of the Calgary Flames are doer playoff performers of the week. Are you wearing your doer?
If I can give, no, I'm not right now. I got shorts on. If I could give a honorable mention, I'm going to go with Jonas Korpisalo. Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
what a week that guy's had. Seriously.
Well,
what do you make? 86 saves?
I know. So I'm looking at the copy here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but
yeah, I can. Yeah.
It says time to name our players with the doer playoff performance of the week. So Ray and Darren are each picking their player and explaining why they chose them, but it could be more than one player of the week. So there we go. We've mentioned several,
and that's the way it should be.
And Korpisalo is right there near the top for sure. I got a new pair of doer jeans delivered the other day, and
have you slipped them on? They're nice. I'm telling you, Drake. They're comfortable. They're flexy, stretchy. I like them.
I love them, but they're so nice that I don't know where to wear them. Like I don't socialize enough, right? So I'm thinking of wearing them to bed in the new house because they're stretchy. They're temperature control.
Yeah, but stay cool. When you move in, you're not going to have any sheets or anything, so nobody's going to find those for a week. So I think this is the opportunity.
It is, thanks to Doer. And you can use the code RAY to get 15% off everything site-wide at doer.ca. Our interview with Scott Driscoll is coming up next. It's brought to you by our pals at coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. Sports back, as you know, around the globe. And with all of the free sports and casino games, coolbet.co now has daily betting odds and line reports covering all of the day's action. You can check that out for sure. You got to be 19 years old to play, and Coolbet reminds you to stay cool, Ray, and always bet responsibly. All right, we are pleased to be joined on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast by a longtime NHL linesman, and I mean a long time. Scott Driscoll was around the league a long time. I mean, he was involved in many situations when Ray Ferraro was starring in the National Hockey League. So that's how long Scott Driscoll has been around. Recently retired. Scotty, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Darren.
So let's just look at the numbers here for a moment. 28 NHL seasons. 1,847 regular season games, 185 playoff games, right? So that's 2,032 combined games, 3 Stanley Cup Finals, 2 Winter Classics, the 2004 NHL All-Star Game, the 1996 World Cup, and the 1987 Pee Wee Quebec International. Does that pretty much wrap up your career?
Never made it to the international. I'm not sure where you got that stat from. Maybe as a player.
Oh, yes, of course. That's often overlooked, right? I mean, you actually played the game at a decent enough level. I mean, you were a bit of a goon, were you not, Scotty?
I don't think I was a goon. I did get invited to Vancouver's camp in 1990, and I did fight Gino Ojic, and now I'm a linesman. So,
so the fight went well.
Very well. I'm still alive after.
Scotty, how did you get into it? Like, was it something in the back of your head as you were playing along that maybe you could get into officiating, or did it just kind of happen?
I kind of a lady in my small town in Seaforth, Ontario, approached myself and a couple of friends, and they asked if we'd like to get into officiating because they had no young officials. So really, it just started. It was like a part-time job. I really enjoyed it. I was playing my minor hockey, went on to play some junior B. I continued to officiate, and it was about that time when I knew I wasn't going to make it as a player that I thought, well, maybe I could make it as an official. And I became very interested. I got into the Ontario Hockey Association, started working some games in the Ontario Hockey League, and I was even invited to a camp where they had prospective officials at it, and the NHL watched me, and lo and behold, they watched me long enough, and they hired me.
When you get hired, like, I think people have no idea. Like, you're not just a full-time NHL official, are you? You're doing some American League games too, or were you right in right away?
No, I was hired under a thing called a probationary linesman contract, and what they did is they took one full-time NHL position, and they divided it amongst myself and Lyle Seitz. So they really had two guys that they could use if injuries came along. The idea, at the time, they kind of called it a 40-40. Half your games in the NHL, half in the minor leagues. During that season, I worked, I think, 46 NHL games and 32 or 33 in the minor leagues. We had a few injuries, but my first professional regular season game was on a Friday night in Springfield. My second professional game was in Boston on October the 10th, 1992, of which the New York Islanders played, and one Ray Ferraro played in.
It was that quick, seriously?
Yeah, so that was my second professional game.
No
it was
wonder
my
you were
first
so
NHL game.
sensitive.
Pardon me?
No wonder you were so sensitive.
Wow, come on, Ray. Tell the story.
Yeah, you got to tell the story. Hold on, we've set it up. Go. Who wants to start? Ray, you start.
Well, okay, so I view the linesman as like, okay, we got to get the game moving along, get the puck in the circle, let's get it going. So I don't know Scott from anybody's. I didn't know he was that brand new, but so he's in the game, and of course there's this giant of a man, and I hear his nickname is Cub. So I don't know if actually I do know he called a penalty on, I believe, Pat Flatley for high sticking, and in my opinion, it was a horrible call. What else would it be?
Well, what exactly did you say? Like, I mean, let's kind of keep it family.
After this is going on, and now Flats, our captain, is kicked out of the game for a 5-minute major. Now, the next time I'm taking a draw, Scott's dropping the puck. And so now I'm not very happy. And I'm giving it to him, a hero making a call like this in your first game. And now, again, I know his name's Cubby, but I don't know his name's Scott Driscoll. I just know he's Cubby because I've heard that. I'm like, hey, Tubby, would you get the puck down in the circle? Let's get going. Well, he got hot, really hot, and didn't go well for me. However, now I can't let him go. I don't know how long this went on for. Years.
Well, if I can take over now, you have Ray.
Yes.
Now I can tell you the factual part.
Okay. Even better.
The penalty that I assessed to Pat Flatley was a 5-minute major in a game misconduct for. He dumped the puck in, and as he tried to avoid his defender, one Raymond Bourque, he cut Ray Bourque in the eye, and Ray ended up being transported to the New England Medical Center for ophthalmology, whatever. He cut him pretty good. We came together, Rob Schick and Leon Stickle, and said, Shicky didn't see it because, I mean, back in the three-man system, there's a lot of stuff that was missed. Even now, there's stuff missed. But Shicky's like, I didn't see what happened. And Leon says, I didn't either. And I said, well, I saw it. And so Rob said to me, what did you see, Cubby? And I told him. He said, okay, Pat Flatley, 5 in a game. Well, for the rest of the night, Ray kept calling me Chubby. Hey, Chubby. Hey, Chubby. Nice call, Chubby. You're a hero, Chubby. So I didn't really say anything. It's my first NHL game. I'm not in a position to say, hey, you little rat, which I was thinking. But shortly after that, I worked with veteran linesman Gord Brossiker about a week later, and we went out for lunch like we normally do as a crew. And Ray says, Gordy says, how's everything going, Cubby? And I go, pretty good. He goes, any issues? I go, well, as a matter of fact, my first game, I did this. I called the 5 in a game, and man, was Ray Ferraro on me all night. He was just like chubby. And I'm a big guy. I'm sensitive about my weight. I always have been. So that night, Gord says, we'll take care of it. Well, early in the game, there was an icing, and I handed the puck off, and he said, stop. So I stopped dead, and Ray's there. And he looks at Ray and says, my friend here tells me you were calling him chubby the other night. You call him chubby once tonight, he will pick you up, and he will body slam you over the boards, which he could have done back in the day in New Jersey. The rest of it, Ray Ferraro handed me the puck. Here, Scott. Here's the puck. Here's Scott. So that was the start of it, and no, he wasn't an issue. It was all good.
Okay, so I'm barking at you early on. Like, who else was there? Had to be other guys, not just you, but who else had lots to say? I mean, I know I did.
How long's the show? A lot of it is just it's said in jest or it's said in emotion, and you don't really worry about it. And there are guys that I definitely had differences with. I prefer to forget those guys. Those are the guys that I really don't even want to talk about because, I mean, they were rude. They would say things, and quite often I would just penalize them. They would go sit in the box or I'd throw them out of the game, and they kind of learned their lessons. So there was a lot of stuff said in the heat of the bout. Back when I started, though, if a guy was giving it to you, we would give it right back in spades.
Yes. And
that was the end of it. It was never talked about, but we can't. It's a different game now, and that's not professional because all the mics and everything too. So we take the high road. You assess a penalty. You warn them. You tell the coach, and then you assess a penalty. So, yeah.
Now, Scott, I know things were way different like when I was playing, and the interactions we could have with you guys were different. Yet in your last game or near your last game in Toronto, Jason Spezza came over to congratulate you on your career. And so I think it's almost like lots of people think it would, they've lost all connection to the officials, but you and Jason go back a long way through his career. Yeah. I thought I was doing that game and I thought it was remarkable that you had garnered that much respect, that the players would come over, would have the sense that, hey man, this guy's just done this job for 20 plus years. And we love the way he did the job. It had to make you feel good.
It did. Like I had such a great last season, other than the fact I missed my last 3 games. And
how about that?
I planned to work my last game in New York. But at the end of the day, you know what? I had a great season. And it started probably in mid-February when teams knew they were seeing me for the last time. And I remember one of the first games was Philadelphia played in Detroit. The whole team lined up. And they shook my hand. And 2 guys that I battled with a lot over the years were Jacob Voracek and Claude Giroux. And they started the handshake. And at the end, they gave me another handshake. And the 3 of us did a group hug. And that's when it really hit me. You know what? At the end of the day, they did respect what I did. They appreciate what I did. And that was really good. Even in Vegas, the whole team lined up. And Marc-Andre Fleury gave me a big hug at the end. He's a classy guy. And that I look back and I think of those fond memories from this year, and that far outweighs anything that happened with the COVID-19.
I do have to say, so right at the end of last season, Scott knew he was going to retire at the end of this year. Dregs, he knew how many periods he had left. And so I go, how many? And he had a number, 387 or whatever the heck it was, right? Yeah. How long did you know that number?
Well, the running joke is we have a thing in our collective bargaining agreement with the NHL, our NHL Officials Association. It's called succession planning. So we kind of plan out 3, 4 years, even 5 years in advance when you will retire. So I knew 4 years in advance, and I was working in Vancouver, And after the first period, I came in, I looked at the guys. So the period count was 900. After that first period, I looked at the guys and go, 899 more periods. And that became the running joke for the rest of the rest of the 4 years. Guys would work with me. What are you at, Cubby? What are you at? And I would tell them I'm a math guy. I taught high school math. And I would say the number, and they got a real kick out of it. Well, I know Chris Cuthbert really well. And obviously, I would stay in touch with him. And Ray would be working a game, and CC wants to know how many periods are left. And my joke was, well, I have 212 periods left unless I do something stupid like punch you out tonight. So we had a lot of fun between the benches, Ray?
I enjoyed it. I love the interaction that I got to have, and what I saw and what I have seen. Of course, you'd always like to go back to your younger self and fix a few things. And I just saw like a personality to the officials that I had never really occurred to me, because you guys were doing your thing, and I always felt, of course, like I wasn't getting the fair shake, or our team got the short end of the stick, and you never got to know guys. Well, now you can sit and BS for a little bit, and you find out, man, these guys are funny guys. They love the game like we love the game. And I think I missed that when I played. I didn't understand it.
Yeah. You probably would have done better in face-offs too if you didn't bark at Kevin all the time.
Well, just get it down and get it in the circle. No,
you gotta let it go, Ray. You have to let it go. Okay, I don't know how long you've been retired. Just let it go.
It's all gone now. I can't even.
No, you mentioned a guy like Jason Spezza. He since he came in the league, he's just been a classy young man, and the interactions I've had with him, I could probably fill this whole show up with him. But he's just such a funny, cordial man. And what I had said to him my second last game in Toronto, Jason, I want to meet you at center ice after my last game, and let's take our jerseys off and exchange jerseys. And he's like, "You mean like they do in soccer?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I can't do that. I don't have the body for that." I go, "Neither do I." He goes, "Yeah, but you're tiring." So, yeah, he came over to center. It was good. That was the picture on my phone for the longest time was Jason and I shaking hands at center.
That's awesome.
Great young man.
Do you have a highlight, Scott? I mean, there's so many. I read off so many of your statistics right off the top of the podcast, top of the interview. Among the 3 Stanley Cup Finals, was it one of the Winter Classics? I mean, 2014 at the Big House had to be nice. I mean, is there one thing, or is it completely out of the realm of what we would think would be important that sticks out as one of your most important moments?
No, I think probably 2004, my first Stanley Cup final, because like players want to win the cup, we want to work the cup,
right?
And to achieve that goal, that will stick with me forever, and something that they can't take away from you once you get it. And I mean, you've mentioned the other highlights that they're all right up there. They would all be 1B. They would be the Winter Classics, both of them. They were such great events, and other fire. My first playoff game or my first regular season game, like they're definitely great moments.
Do you feel okay once the Stanley Cup gets going, the puck hits the ice? Is it just a game to an official, like players say it is, or are you nervous? Are you heightened because it's the final?
In the finals, I think because of the fact that you've endured, because you're competing against a lot of guys for those 4 coveted linesman spots in the finals. I think to get there is a relief. I think it's a vote of confidence, and I think there is a little bit of nerves, but there's a tremendous amount of confidence when we're on the ice that they believe I can do the job and I'm going to do the job. So that's definitely a big factor in it.
Are you paying attention to social media now? If we bring it, to the 2019-2020 Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, you're no stranger to criticism, obviously, throughout your career. It certainly comes with the territory. But, I mean, on an annual basis, you can wind your watch when we in the media start talking about the changing standard or complaining about officiating in varying forms. I mean, you lived it, but now that you're not living it, do you feel for the guys when you're watching on TV, or if you take a moment to scroll through or listen to social media?
Well, one of the benefits of being an NHL official is we're not allowed to have any social media. Oh, and wow. I made it a practice. I really didn't read the newspaper. I guess one of the one of the highlights, and not even a highlight, but probably what I'm most known for in my career is being punched by Daniel Carcillo in the Stanley Cup semifinals. And that was all over the media. And it was really hard on my family because New York Ranger fans were attacking me personally.
Yeah.
And I just told them, don't read it. Don't even pick it up. Don't look at it. Don't read it. And that's what I've done. I do feel for the guys. There isn't a different standard. They're out there. The players play a little bit differently. They go out there, and these guys that are selected, they're the best they have. And they, it just the intensity and the scrutiny picks up because it is the playoffs. So
For sure.
Could you pick an official or two? I mean, maybe this is unfair, but guys that were just so good at what they did, like that maybe you learned from, or you were like, man, these guys are the gold standard.
Well, for me, I mean, it's a long list. I'm going to just stick to linesmen. But Ray Scapanello, he was an amazing linesman. I worked my first playoff game with him, my first time in the second round with him. I worked a Game 7 in 2004 in the third round. So if you work a Game 7 in the third round, you're going to the finals. And then again in the finals, he was just unbelievable. He was a good teacher to people that wanted to be taught, and he was an excellent linesman. I think he did 400 playoff games, 20 Stanley Cup finals. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Another guy's your favorite linesman on faceoffs, Kevin Collins. He was my idol before I got hired. As an official coming through, I used to watch NHL games. I used to try, I wanted to emulate what they were doing out there, and Kevin was my idol going in. I worked with Ron Asseltine a fair bit. He was my first roommate in training camp. His nickname was the Bear. That's why they called me the Cub, for Cubby, not Chubby, Cubby. Leon Stickle. I think I have a little bit of Leon in me because his last year in the league was 97, and I did 33 games with him, and he was grooming me for the playoffs. But he was a guy that was out there that a guy would come up and yell at him, and Leon would just look at him and he'd tilt his head and say, I think I'd look really good in that helmet. Even though I have a big nose, I think that helmet would look good on me. What are you doing, Leon? Guy, Brian Murphy, who retired with me, he's the standard of professionalism and fitness and a great leader. These guys are unbelievable. So I definitely, those four right there, five guys right there really helped me along.
Well, a couple of things that we should get to too, Ray, with Scott. Number one, I just assumed, when you've been around the National Hockey League for as long as you are, there's a place for you in hockey operations with the NHL in some capacity, but you're joining the coaching ranks, right, Scott? You've hooked on with the University of Guelph women's team as an assistant coach.
Yes.
Good for you. You must be excited about that when things normalize or when they normalize.
Yeah, it's I'm the type of person where I like to try to plan ahead. And last year, right about now, a year ago, I had my knee scoped. I had my third knee surgery, and I was rehabbing at the University of Guelph by myself, skating around. And I had known I know the head coach and the assistant coach fairly well. So the one day I just popped in the office, and they had recently lost an assistant coach to Tier 2 Junior A hockey, and I said, you know what, I'd really be interested in thinking, getting into coaching. And Rachel said, well, we'll talk about it during the year. So when I was available during the year, I would go watch them play. I even went and watched a couple of recruits play. And then once my season ended and we were told that we weren't going to be coming back, that when the regular season ended, we were technically retired now. I reached out to Rachel again, and she said, we talked on the phone, and she goes, yeah, we'd like to have you aboard. So it's I've coached before. I've coached many sports, but hockey was hard to coach when I was away 22 days a month. I did coach my youngest son's high school boys junior team one year and really liked it. I just liked the camaraderie, and I taught them a system that I wanted. Ray wouldn't have liked it because we had an F3 all the time and a lot of back checking. No guy. We have guys hanging out behind the net all the time trying to score. So
you better not be a conservative coach. Score, Cubby. You need goals.
We scored so many goals by having an F3, and then they also came back and helped out on defense. So I'm looking forward to the challenge. It's shifting gears, like I said. So the future. See what the future holds.
How has your family gotten through this last 5-6 months or 5 months, whatever it's been now?
we've endured. I mean, with the better weather, it's been nice. A little more freedom to get outside, and the kids are working, and it's they weren't really sure what it was going to be like to have dad around every day, but we've seemed to have survived it. All right, yeah.
So were you ready to go? Like, was this, you said you had your succession plan. Were you ready to, like, was it the right time for you?
Yeah, my succession plan meeting with Don Van Massenhoven took about 18 seconds. He said, "How many more years do you think you have?" I told him, and he said, "Okay, we were thinking this, but maybe that." And he got approval from his boss, and we signed the papers. So I think I've told people there's a lot of components. There's the physical component of the job. I've had 3 knee surgeries. I'm not the smallest person on the ice. I was ready to go physically, but I was also ready to go mentally and emotionally, and those are big components too. And I think I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I saw that maybe there's another something else that Scott Driscoll can do, but
Yeah.
I was definitely ready to go, and the timing was right.
Well, we'll let you go with this because in addition to coaching and the other aspects that you have going on with your family life, etc., I know that you've got a real passion for World War II history, right? And as you and I were setting up the podcast interview, you talked about how one day you want to be a tour guide in Normandy, France. Like, how close is that to becoming reality?
Well, the anthem singer for the Colorado Avalanche is a guy named Jake Schrader. Jake has a place over in St. Mary Glees as part of a group of foundation in Colorado. And we've talked about opening a type of tour group. He does take kids over there as part of a police foundation throughout the year. But him and I would like to kind of share a business, and really if we could get hockey people interested. And there's been a lot of chatter because, as Ray would say, I'm on the ice. I talk a lot in between the benches. I'm a very social guy. I'm asking guys how things are at home and what's going on, especially if I know the person, I have a connection to them. And even a guy like Sidney Crosby, I said, "Hey, Sid, at some point, do you think you could introduce me to Tom Hanks? He's my idol, like what he's done with Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan." And Sid's like, "Oh, are you a history person?" I go, "I love World War II history. I started my master's in it at Arizona State University at the time." And he's like, I took 2 courses this summer. I go, "Well, when I retire, that's what I want to do. I want to run tours over there." So I've been throwing it out there to certain people, and there seems to be a little bit of interest. And I took 9 people over last year for the 75th anniversary of D-Day. We went from where the British Airborne landed, because the Canadians were with the British Airborne, the British 6th Airborne, to Sword Beach, Gold Beach. We spent 2 full days at Juno Beach. I could tell you where the regiments landed. I could tell you stories about some of the guys that were killed, some of the guys that, funnier stories. Then we did Omaha Beach. We did Utah Beach. We did the U.S. Airborne, which is absolutely, you have Band of Brothers, but you also have the 82nd Airborne at Lafayette Bridge. And I'm very passionate about it, and I read about it. I just finished reading The Longest Day again. It's something that those guys were what they did as citizens to go over and liberate the world. It's amazing. And I told people, you know what? I missed out my last NHL game in New York, but there's 359 Canadians landed at Juno Beach on D-Day and were killed, and they didn't have a future. So for what they gave up, I can't really complain.
That's terrific.
Man, well, I'll tell you, you get that set up and you got a customer.
All right.
And I will even keep my zip shut.
It wouldn't be any fun if you didn't chirp me. Okay. Darren, my last NHL game, my last commercial timeout, he looks at Derek Hamel. He says, "Hey, Derek, does anybody have dibs on his helmet in case you need a jacuzzi in the backyard?" It never ended. So
tremendous.
Scotty, congratulations on an amazing career. This is it's outstanding to see you again and to talk to you, and glad your family's well, and all the best with coaching whenever we get to that next.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it, Ray.
Yeah, you bet, Scotty, and anything we can do to help you, we'll be there.
Thanks, Darren. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Ray, I don't even know where to start there. Here's a man with depth, right? Not just size, but depth, and also a real good dose of humility. The fact that he can recollect the same stories that you lived through, but have a great sense of humor about it early in his career when a player like you mattered and he was probably very, very nervous. Tell that story and then take us through his passion for the history of World War II and everything in between, and the fact he's getting into coaching. Scott Driscoll is just one of the good guys of the sport.
It's very similar to players that go through a career and they just kind of blend into the woodwork, right? They don't have a big personality, or people don't really get to know them, or, they're not around long enough to make an impact that, people can talk about. Well, Scotty was around for so long. He was so chatty on the ice that everybody knew him. Of course, he told the story of Jason Spezza. Mm-hmm. I had no idea that was his first NHL game. Man, that was his second pro game. I had no idea. He was just a guy I thought screwed up. Well, over the years, you got to see that, you see his personality. It's big. He was always talking on the ice. He was excellent at what he did. To do 2,000 games is quite remarkable. And he kind of touched on it. And I think we never really think about it, but he had 3 knee surgeries. These guys are battling and slugging it out too. And it's not easy to do what they do. Yeah. He was excellent at what he does, or what he did, I guess now. He's a sensational guy.
And I always admire people who don't have life figured out, but he talks about, I've read articles where he talks about he spent effectively 8 to 10 years in a Marriott because of the number of games that he did as an NHL official. So that's a ton of time away from home. So of course you've got time to think about life after hockey, but in his case, he wants to pursue 2 passions, and one is to be that consistent tour guide in organizing and running tours over to France from North America, and 2 is being an assistant coach with the University of Guelph women's team. I mean, here's a guy that's been away so much, but he has so many things going on that you can just tell that he's enjoying his life after hockey.
Well, there's that transition period for officials too, same as players.
Yeah.
And for some, it's easier. For others, it's a real struggle. For Scotty, it will not be a struggle. I mean, I got lucky. I fell into this. Yeah. But man, for a lot of guys, it's really hard to figure out what comes next. And for Scotty, that'll be easy.
Okay, thanks again to Scott Driscoll. Let's move along to Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. And every week on the podcast, we ask our listeners, viewers on the YouTube channel to send us in their questions. You're not going to be surprised, Ray. There's questions about officiating. There's questions about the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's questions about overtime in the playoffs. So let's start with that. And this question comes from Darby. A lot of talk about making overtime in the playoffs 4-on-4 after the second overtime period. Darby says that they like that. So you don't have players totally draining, going 4 or 5 periods or more. Hockey isn't that good when you get into the third overtime period, fourth, fifth overtime period. Players are gassed. We can appreciate all of that. Do we think that there's a chance that the NHL would ever embrace shifting over to a 4-on-4 or even a 3-on-3 just to give the players a break in these multiple overtimes?
I can't see it. Dregs, how many games a year do you think we're talking about? Are we talking about 2 or 3?
Yeah, not many. Not many.
And honestly, this topic comes up every year because there's some crazy long game that goes into 3 or 4 overtimes, and the other day was just 5. I don't see it. I don't think you. I just can't imagine that the game will change that materially to go to 4-on-4 in overtime.
And I agree with you, but I think that the NHL looks at it differently. The NHL looks at it as a spectacle. It doesn't happen very often. Overtime is always thrilling. So when you've got 4 or 5 overtime periods, rather than complain about it, embrace it. If it happens more than a few times, okay, well, now maybe you've got something you've got to take the general managers. But I tend to agree with your assessment. We touched on this earlier in the headlines, but this question, Ray, comes from Steve. And Steve qualifies. He says, this question is from me and many long-suffering Leafs fans. He wants to know, what is the best path forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs to get to where they can start winning playoff series? That's part of it. And in our opinion, who needs to most own where they are? The players, the coaches, or the management? What do you think?
Well, okay, so how do you get to where you win series consistently? I think you have to identify what the real problem is. And when I look at the Leafs, there is nothing in life that works unless you have balance.
Mm.
If you don't have a work personal life balance, then your life runs off the rails. You need balance in everything you do. The Leafs don't have balance.
Right.
They don't have it from the top end of the roster to the bottom end of the roster. They don't have it from the forwards to the defense. They don't have it from the skill to the size.
Yeah.
So their balance is all off. So you want to win playoff series, you've got to get more balanced. And that to me is the road that has to be pursued. As the second part was, who needs to own it more? Well, there's blame for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the management team put this roster together, so they got to chew on that.
Yeah.
The players that didn't produce, they've got to chew on that. The coach decided in Game 5 to put his three best forwards together and put William Nylander, who's a winger, in the middle of the ice. And that's because they don't have any balance. So he made that decision. So I think there's plenty to go around. For me, it's not those guys get more blame than that guy.
Right.
The management put the team together. The coach made some decisions that didn't work out. And the players certainly didn't score enough to win.
Okay. We've got a bit of a lighthearted question from Chantrell. Chantrell with a question. When we can all travel again, what are some of your favorite vacation spots that you were wanting to get to? I will say mine was Turks and Caicos, because James Duthie has been there like 42 times in the last 10 years. I'm not sure how he gets there as often as he does. That's another story. But we were booked to go in July, and obviously couldn't get there. I mean, COVID took that trip down. It was a big family trip. So I'm looking forward to eventually getting to Turks and Caicos. How about you? What would be a main spot for you? Is it golf related or
no? Two for me. The Caribbean for sure. We want to take the kids to the blue water, the light blue water, the sand beach, the white beach, and they want to go. We've never been, and so that will hopefully happen sooner rather than later. I was supposed to be in Ireland and Scotland leaving tomorrow, August the 14th. However, that didn't go, so we're doing that in 2022. So those are my next two bucket list type trips.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I know you're going to enjoy both, and I'm envious of both as well. I can't even remember the last time I golfed. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but because of the move and all the nonsense I have going on in my life, golf has become like priority 17 on my list.
Yeah, that sucks, because it's going to get to a point where you're going to have time to play.
Yeah.
And there'll be snow on the ground.
And I won't be able to fly anywhere warm to play.
Right, you're done. You're finished.
All right, well, we're looking forward to episode 38 coming up on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. I kind of like the routine that we've got going here, right? I mean,
do we have one?
No, not really, but that's sort of the routine. It's just go by the seat of your pants. I guess we could have tried for Kenny Holland or somebody from the Oilers, somebody from the Leafs, but the wound seems too gaping this soon after them getting dispatched. So let's think of that for episode 38.
I think we can do that for 38. Yeah.
Or we'll go outside the box. I mean, Scott Driscoll isn't entirely outside the box, but a little bit, right? But still very interesting, good storyteller, and a terrific add to our collection of guests. So look forward to something like that.
We'll get to work on this.
What do you got coming up for the rest of the week? I mean, we talked about it earlier in the show. I mean, you're fresh from camping. I mean, what do you got going
on? Club championship at our golf course.
Wow.
This weekend. I'm a little concerned. I'm a 6 handicap, and I don't think I can play to it.
Right.
I'm off the box at 8:38 on Saturday morning. Just got the email, so I'm ready to go.
So is it a 36 hole event?
36 holes, yeah.
And then are you flighted after the 18, or what happens?
Yeah. Yes, you are. And so I'm in a flight that puts me in great opportunity to win a net prize, because I won't be good enough to play in the gross side.
So if you shoot, not that you will, because you're not, no, you won't. You've had a good year on the golf course. If you shoot 83 in the first round,
disappointing.
Yeah, but are you going to grind it out in the second round then?
Yeah, I do. I'm too stupid to pack it in.
Who threw you the ball, by the way? Was that Reese or Riley? Or
that was Landon.
Oh,
Landon just walked out the door, fired a ball in here. So I think he showed up, like I'm sure your kids do. They showed up just around dinner time. So
yeah,
go figure that.
Well, my son, actually, we're moving this week. As you know, I've mentioned it about 42 times.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, my son took advantage this week and went on a fishing trip with 13 of his buddies. It's well planned. I mean, good on him.
Good thinking by him.
Yeah.
Good thinking by him.
All right. Well, you've got a lot to look forward to, so we'll let you get back to that. And are you back in the regular routine? I mean, the podcast is part of what you do on a weekly basis, but you're doing the radio shows and
the SC hits and all that nonsense. Yeah. Oh yeah. We're there's hockey on, Dregs.
I know this, but so again, I'm not trying to put you in a bad spot here. I keep listening and hearing everybody say how wonderful it is to have hockey all day long. And I missed hockey as much as anyone else, but I also have other stuff going on in my life, and having to watch hockey for 12 hours a day it's not a challenge. Well, it is a challenge. It
is, because you got to be able to breathe at some point. You know what I liked the other day was when Colorado and Arizona played. And you know why I like that? Because after about 15 minutes, there was no point in watching it anymore. I was like, man, thank goodness I can get a break. But crazy. Otherwise, then you got 3 other games to watch.
I know, but then you have to watch when it's a shutout like that. Then you've got to watch for something silly to happen. Or do you just wait for social media to give you the example after the fact?
Well, what do you mean?
You here a little bit.
What do you mean? Something silly?
Somebody gets run from behind, or there's a nasty.
Well, I'll
incident.
be honest with you, Dregs. I'm not watching 60 minutes of every game every day. Can't do it.
Really?
Can't do it. Won't do it. Who was the coach? The football coach that did that? Can't win. Oh, Mike Singletary.
Can't
win with him. Can't do it. Won't do it.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. That is a snazzy backyard that you and Cammy put together. I'm trying to analyze all of it. I see the putting green. That's pretty obvious. You got a nice little playhouse there. You've got the sport
that's for the
court.
grandkids, right? You got the sport court. And over here, we got the, I don't know if you can see, we got the soccer net. That's the second fence. The boys didn't hit the net enough with the first one, so we had to get that one repaired.
And not that you have any marital issues to speak of, but have you ever spent an evening in the playhouse there behind you that wasn't scheduled?
I'll ask Cammy.
No,
move, Dregs. Move.
Let's save that for episode 38, buddy. All right, thanks. We'll talk to you again soon. Big shout out to all of our partners that make the podcast possible. We couldn't do it without you. You know this. Coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino game website. Chris from Coolbet is going to be joining us next week on the podcast, so buckle up for that. This guy's a character. Boston Pizza, we'll see you on the patio for Puck Drop. Thanks to you. Dewar Performance Denim. Use code RAY for 15% offsite wide at dewar.ca. And you can now find the podcast, subscribe to it on the YouTube channel, as we're doing it on video each week. So please subscribe there. Thanks to Aaron the Tech Johnson for producing Ray and Dregs. And another big thank you to Tony Ferraro for giving us the excellent music you hear each week on the pod as well. Look forward to episode 38. In the meantime, be well, everybody.